I ask that before you leave, come over and put your name and your email address, your phone number down for us. That way we can get in touch and let you know of other upcoming events. But I'm really happy to have Senator Amodei here tonight. Mark's a very electable man. We cannot lose that seat. And I think he's going to be our winner. He's the man who's going to take the GOP to Washington once again. He's going to represent this district. He knows Nevada. So I turn it over to him.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for letting the Carson guy show up to a Mineral County Serpent day after the 4th of July. I appreciate the opportunity to come and visit with you all when it's not a Lincoln Day or you guys stay pretty busy out here with Armed Forces Day and other things like that. And I'm one of those guys who, when you have to be in Vegas, if it works to drive, I go ahead and drive. And one of the stretches that I enjoy, because I had a summer job working for BLM when I was in college. And so I spent quite a bit of time out at Walker Lake improving Tamarack Point, which we mustn't have done a very good job because they tore most of the stuff we did out of there afterwards. Still bothers me a little bit, but spent time, camped there for a week at a time. Reminded me of some of the rocks west of there, between there and the Wasatchs, petroglyphs on them, and the stories of your youth and fun stuff like that. So I have fond memories of growing up and being in Mineral County as a BLM seasonal employee of the Youth Conservation Corps. And then most recently, I was sharing with one of you that my rock hounding career in Dunlop Canyon outside of Mina didn't go so well, but my gosh, it wasn't because I wasn't up there giving them all the eye and stuff like that. So I look forward to doing some more of that. Real briefly, because I want to make sure if you folks have any questions that we can engage in that. Real quick history. Born in Carson City, raised in Carson City, Carson High graduate, UNR graduate. Went to law school for 3 years in Sacramento at George School of Law. When I got out of law school, spent 4 years on active duty in the Army as a JAG officer. Came back to Nevada in 1987. Practiced law for 16, 17 years, something like that, in the old Paul Laxalt firm. Did resource-related stuff, water, real estate development, business-related things like that. Elected to the Nevada Assembly in 1996, the Nevada Senate in 1998. I'm proud of the fact that I got to say I left the Nevada Senate because of term limits, not because I was kicked out. Finished that up in 2010. Just before that, I had an opportunity to be the president of the Nevada Mining Association for a year and a half. So I got out of the law business and managed the Mining Association. But there came a time when we were getting ready to do the last legislative session in 2009, and some folks would say, well, we're not sure that's an appropriate thing for somebody who's an industry association manager to be involved in the legislature. And I said, well, last time I checked, it was a citizen legislature, and the mining industry ought to be as available as anybody to participate in it. But if this is going to be an issue for you, you know what, I'll fix that. And so I resigned from the Nevada Mining Association in December of 2008, served out my last term, the 2009 term, and then went out on my own and presently am doing some in-house legal work for the Retail Association, a little bit of work for some construction companies, same kind of resource. Most recently also served as for the past year as the president of the Nevada Republican Party. As my mom reminds me, another job that is volunteer and doesn't pay anything. And enjoyed that. And when the events that transpired that led to John Ensign resigning and Dean Heller being appointed to his seat, I felt a real strong connection with Northern Nevada, because it's where I was born and raised and have been in public service for 15 years. So it's like, okay, let's see how this goes and give this a try. So here we are. On January 18th. Oh, by the way, two daughters, Erin and Ryan. Erin's 25, is in her second year of nursing school at Truckee Meadows. Ryan is 28, spent 4 years on active duty in the Navy as a surface warfare officer. He got off of active duty about a year ago, after 3 sea service ribbons in 4 years, went to the Gulf twice, and on a tsunami relief thing once. She was complaining about being at sea all the time. I told her I liked it because we got to go on the Tiger cruises. So the more you're at sea, Ryan, the more I get to do the Tiger cruise thing. Maybe the Navy folks converted me a little bit from my Army ways after being on board with them for a while. But anyhow, she is now, lives over in the Bay Area, is an engineering trainer for the Intuitive Surgical Robotic Company, the Da Vinci machine. Proud of both girls. And so that's kind of the family and my background. And I wanted to now talk a little bit about why did you put yourself out for this sort of thing? Why do you think you choose for the last 14, 15 months of this term? Those sorts of things. And what I've been telling folks is I think I've got some really good depth in the district, having lived the district, having served the district in a public service sense, worked many of the issues that are important to the community, Carson, a small community. Although Carson isn't as small as it was when I was growing up. The Carson I grew up in was about 15,000 people. I remember hosting Little League tournaments where we had folks from Babbitt living with us during the Little League tournaments when there was a Babbitt. So felt pretty strongly about my roots, public service, and knowing the issues, whether it be mining, whether it be water, whether it be economic development, resource issues, government, funding issues, home rule, you name it. So felt that those were some pretty strong qualifiers. And so got involved in this. I was fortunate enough to be selected at the Republican state meeting on June 18th, just about a month ago coming up, by the 350-ish Central Committee delegates. Went through that process, visited with most of the delegates, was humbled by the support there, bless you, humbled by the support that was shown there, and then recently today, here we are in Hawthorne on July 5th, Supreme Court decided this afternoon that the district court decision by Todd Russell saying that the party should pick one candidate was affirmed. And so you have Kate Marshall on the Democrat side and myself on the Republican side, as well as the independents who have signed up. So it's that's where we are today. Now let's talk about the calendar in terms of going to be a pretty fast summer. Early voting in this election, by the way, it's September 13th. Governor Sandoval set the date for September 13th. So you have early voting starts the last Saturday in August. So what you've got is basically a 60-day sprint of an election in terms of for who you want to finish out Dean Heller's term. The person who is elected on that day will finish those 14 or 15 months. That will not change anything that goes along the regular election cycle in 2012, which signups are this coming March for a primary in June, which is what, 11 months from now?
Yeah.
And then the regular election in 2012 will be in November. So for those of you that haven't had enough, and by the way, Nevada is a battleground state in 2012. With four congressional seats, there's a new seat in Las Vegas. The Senate seat, Dean Heller, John Ensign's Senate seat are up. Presidential cycle, Nevada's once again seen as a battleground state for that. So for those of you that haven't had enough politics, you should have your fill by November of 2012 and be looking for a well-deserved rest in terms of those things. And so that brings us, that's kind of the calendar and the history. Let me just talk about a couple things real quick, and then I'll open it up for your questions. And that is, you've got issues on the national level, you've got issues on the state level. And one of the things that I tell people is, you've got 535 people back there between the Senate and the House who concentrate on national things, and everybody has their part to play. But the person who you elect to this seat is the one who is solely responsible on the congressional side of the House for what happens in those 16 counties of Nevada, plus 61 precincts in Clark County. And that's why I think it's important when you decide who you're going to support that you look at their depth in your communities, their depth in your issues, their depth in public service legislatively. Do they know your issues? Do they know agribusiness? Do they know minerals? Do they know the economic challenges that we face up and down the 95 corridor, the 80 corridor, or the 50 corridor, as well as that little stretch of 395. And so when you talk about those things, I think one of the things that you have to talk about, one of the committees that I was fortunate enough to serve on during my legislative tenure was the public lands. And as you know, in Mineral County, when you talk about economic development, you have to include the landlord. And in a state where the landlord is the federal government, they own 85% of everything, you need to talk about and concentrate every day all day. Regulatory policies of the Department of the Interior, regulatory policies of the Department of Agriculture, Forest Service. Regulatory policies, we have don't need to tell you folks, but the military plays a significant role in this state between what's going on here at the ammunition depot, what's going on at Fallon, what's going on down at Nellis, and other areas that are just outside of the district proper, but still phenomenally important for the economies and the communities that they operate in. I know you just not too long ago got the Mercury mission here. We heard testimony on that a few years back. So that provides you a little more foundation and basis for what's going on here at the depot. But also when you talk about mineral exploration, energy exploration, things like that with the federal lands, it's something that I think for CD2 is as important in this congressional district as any other congressional district in the West or even the country. And the most recent one was in 2000 and I don't remember if it was 2007 or 2009. Had some concern about some proposed wilderness legislation. Major impact, yeah, that's a little light, but
8 and 9.
major impact on exploration for minerals. Some of the wilderness study areas in here haven't met, and have been on the books for a long time, haven't met the BLM criteria, but they've still stayed on the books as potential study areas. And I tell people, I joke, I said, we got that thing about water for Walker Lake, for Lyon County, and Mineral County. We're kind of, a little bit like this, and what's going to go on that? I says, leave it to this proposed wilderness legislation, potential legislation. I said, those folks were meeting out at Schur's for barbecues and having dueling county commission resolutions, every week about, you ought to talk to us about that process. So I will say this, there is work to be done there that hasn't been done. And nobody's saying be irresponsible with resources. Nobody's saying be disrespectful with true wilderness areas. But as you folks know, some of those potential maps had 100-year-old modern mining sites on them. Or they carved them around them. It's like, listen, it's time to start telling the truth about resources. It's time to start telling the truth about entitlements. It's time to start telling the truth so that we can, going from the truth, start saying, okay, now what makes sense? And I will tell you the things that I hope have distinguished me over my career. 1, I read the bills. 2, I tell the truth. And 3, I talk to the people who are stakeholders. So it's not one of those things where you wake up and read in the paper one morning, if perchance Mark Amodei gets to have the pride of saying, I represent Mineral County in the United States Congress, where you say, he did something with respect to whatever, and nobody ever talked to us. I think communications are one of the skills that I've demonstrated over those 15 years. Not a turf person, but a results person. And there's plenty to do with what's going on in Nevada right now, with the economy, with the job situation. You folks know because you started experiencing it before the rest of the state. By the way, blue ribbon on toughness. A lot of people were worried about what's going on in Mineral County, and as you drive through some of the other ones, it's like you want to meet some folks who are resilient and who are out there taking what they've got and moving the ball forward, even when people were worried about it. Hats off to you. And you can give some other ones some lessons, but congratulations on that. So that's kind of a broad-based thing. If there's anything specifically on your mind, be happy to respond to those. Whether it's land use, whether it's federal entitlements, whatever the deal is. If you heard something or you've seen my driving before and you thought it was a little less than adequate or anything else like that, I have no points on my driver's license to speak, so fire away.
How would you be willing to be subject to any and all legislation that you enact for the general public that now typically you would be exempt from, such as health care?
Everybody hear that?
Yeah.
Kind of a good question. Let me put it to you this way. I think that, first of all, it's public service. And lot of times people tend to forget that. Serving in any elected office, whether it's local or at that level, is a public service job. Second of all, you don't get the job unless the people that you ostensibly represent give it. So this, and I say those two things to say this. I believe, I know you'll find this quite controversial, but there's a pretty big credibility crisis with the 535 folks that are back there right now for reasons that you've